Representative Armando Walle, thank you for being here. That's our first time we've got the music exactly right, just in your honor. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite to be here with you.
Absolutely. Do you know Archie Bell and the Durrells? They actually have a sign right by our old office when you welcome to the Fifth Ward home of Archie Bell and the Durrells. Have you seen that before?
I haven't seen that, but I know the music. I love, rhythm and blues. It's and funk music is just quintessential Houston. So it's awesome.
Very good. It is. Well, we're having folks dropping in on that. Thank you for being here. This is going to be up on our YouTube channel where we're getting a couple hundred folks who are downloading it. So this is a really opportunity to kind of hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak, what's been going on. And it sounds like this week, the exciting news is committee assignments. Tell us about that.
That's correct. So just under our Constitution, the first 60 days of the state legislature, we don't take up any bills. So what those 60 days encompass is you getting acquainted with your colleagues, interest groups come to the Capitol, constituents come to the Capitol, student groups, elderly groups, seniors, and interest groups. But in the meantime, because we have a new speaker, Speaker Dustin Burrows, he's a member from the Panhandle up in Lubbock, Texas. This is his first session. He won 80 plus votes to become speaker. And part of that job, awesome job actually, is to dole out committee assignments. And so unlike Congress, where the majority wins the speakership, so Mike Johnson is the majority leader in the US Congress by sheer majority, and no Democrat would support that Republican speaker. In Texas, it's slightly different. We're probably the last bastion of bipartisanship. So both Democrats and Republicans elect the speaker, whoever that might be. And Dustin has to now dole out committee assignments. And so if you're on the right side politically in supporting that position, that speaker, you have a better chance of getting an assignment that you want. And so assignments came out here a couple of days ago, and it was a lot of anxiety, a lot of anticipation by members of both parties on what selections they were or what positions they would be placed in.
Well, can you tell us a little bit? I mean, obviously, we have folks that understand the legislative process, some not as well. And one of the things we're doing, not just with this, but with our legislative priorities, is kind of getting our base and our precinct chairs and our clubs more engaged in what you're doing. How does it work with a legislative committee, and why does it matter what committee you're on?
Well, it matters what committee you're on, because for instance, myself, there's 150 members. I'm number 18th in seniority. And so when you are selecting your seniority selections, you get a card from the speaker and you get 6 slots. You get three selections to a committee that you would want to be on. You get to fill it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you get to select 3 speaker slots. And then on the other column, 3 seniority slots. And so even though I'm a Democrat in a Republican controlled legislature, because by sheer seniority, I can use my seniority to get on a influential committee. So for instance, I can use my seniority to get on the House Appropriations Committee. And that is obviously deals with our budget. Every session we pass the last session was about $320 billion. This session, the budget would be closer to about $330 billion. And so I get to use my seniority, I get to use my influence in steering state dollars back to Harris County. And so that's why it's important. You can use your seniority. Now, if you're a new member, obviously your seniority, it might not weigh as much, but if you pick the right speaker, frankly, you probably would be rewarded in a committee slot that you want. And it could run the gamut. It could be in public education. It could be in health and human services. Those are all separate committees. It could be in licensing, regulation, or TxDOT, transportation. It could be various aspects of state government that you want to have influence over. So yes, it matters because you can influence the legislative process as bills go through the process.
Well, and by the way, y'all, for those that are logging, it looks like we got a lot more logging on right now. You could put stuff in the chat, and as we have time, we'll make sure we throw out the questions. So just put it in there, and we'll take a look and put it. But the legislative process, so you have a committee. Tell me how does it work, and how would you have influence? Let's just say you're on licensing, I understand, which has the TABC, all the restaurants and alcohol goes to that committee. How does it work in process that you would have influence?
So every session you have probably around 8,000 or 9,000 bills that are filed. roughly about less than 1,000 actually become law. So the timing is very, very important. And so right now, you can start to hear bills around March 14th-ish, because that's the 60th day that you can hear bills based on our Constitution. And so I had to this is more of a civics lesson, right? A little, right? We're
This
trying
is
to
how it
empower
works.
folks and get folks. This is how it works. And so each bill that goes through the process has to go through the committee process. So for instance, if it's a bill dealing with licensing of alcohol and tobacco or anything like that, it'd have to go through that licensing and administrative procedures committee. In that process, it has to have a hearing. It has to have public testimony, and folks from all over the state get to come and testify for or against. And in that type of committee, the alliances can be very unique. You can have very conservative folk and very progressive folk kind of team up on certain bills, and a particular bill could die, could not even get through the process, or they could support a bill and then vote that bill, have this, public input, change the language of the bill to meet certain interest groups liking, draft, get a second and third draft of the bill, and then, present it out of committee or try to get a vote out of committee. Well, look, just because you get the bill out of committee doesn't mean it gets to the House floor. It then travels from the subject matter committee. If it's successful getting out, you get to the calendars committee, and the calendars committee basically sets the floor agenda. And if I don't know, you might have looked at the chairman of the calendars committee the wrong way or something, and I don't know, you might have offended that person
Who is
for
that,
some
so we know who
reason.
to look at the wrong way or not look at the wrong way? Do you happen to know who the calendar
His name is Todd Hunter. His name is Todd Hunter. He
Okay.
was a previous chairman of State Affairs last session. He was also a prior committee chair of calendars committee about 2 or 3 sessions ago. So this is not his first rodeo. Todd Hunter is actually a former Democrat turned Republican who is from the Coastal Bend area. He's from Nueces County, Corpus Christi area. So he is the new chairman of the calendars committee. So so in the calendars committee is, it was really dark, kind of has this reputation of very secretive. You don't know if you would have the votes to get your bill out of committee either way. And so even on a good day, let's just say your bill gets out of committee, out of the calendars committee, and let's backtrack, right? So it has to go through the subject matter committee. That could take a couple days. That could take another week before they actually vote out the bill, because they're not going to vote the bill out that day. You could have had your bill presented early and it stays stuck in calendars for about a month, right? And so even if you get your bill out after that month to be presented to the floor, doesn't mean that the House, not the Senate, that the House is going to favor your bill. You still got to, everybody who follows us sees the video feed of us on the House floor, the front mic where those of us that are members present our bills, the back mic where members get to question you on the bill. Even if you get it through that process, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to pass. So, okay, again, on a good day, let's just say that bill passes. Well, you have to understand it could have been another week or 2 or 3 weeks before you get your day on the floor. The legislature only meets for 140 days. So the first 60 days, you don't hear any bills. So the time frames, deadlines start to creep up on you.
Yes.
Because there's certain deadlines, they start to truncate, and because certain bills have to leave the House floor by a certain date. Okay, so you get your bill out. It's voted favorably out of the House floor. Where does it has to go? It has to go to the Senate. You got to go find you a Senate sponsor or somebody that's going to file your companion bill. And then the Senate's a whole different ballgame, right?
You mean Dan Patrick land?
Dan Patrick controls the Senate with the iron fist. And he flaunts that, right? So He is all knowing. He's God in the Senate. So
And to
if you
think
don't
about
have their
talking as a
blessing,
sportscaster back in the day when he had an on-air vasectomy, I kind of have every time I see him, I kind of think about that. I don't know if you remember that, but that was kind of a big deal where he decided. I mean, I guess he got somebody to give him a free vasectomy as long as he did it on air, and now he's
yeah, no,
our
no comment on that. But I would just say that you have to honestly then have to go deal with the Senate and whoever you can help you on the Senate side. Okay, let's just say even you get it out of there. Well, again, those deadlines start to creep up, and there are certain dates where if your bill is passed out of the Senate, that it has to come back to the House. If it's amended in the Senate somehow, because obviously the bill has to be identical from both the Senate and the House to before it reaches the governor if it's approved in the Senate side. If there are differences, then you got to go through what they call a conference committee. And in that conference committee, if the bill is amended in the Senate in any which way, then you appoint a conference committee from both the Senate and the House, and you worked out the differences there. Because as the bill is filed early, I'm almost positive that the language in that bill is going to change along the way. And that's where members come in. That's where those of us that have been there a while can amend the bill, can, mitigate some of the damages to a bill. And that's on any bill, let alone a bill that would get out of licensing and
well, that's
administrative
what I want to.
procedures.
It sounds like somebody told me once a long time ago that Texas legislators designed to kill legislation, not actually
It
pass
is.
it. And you've basically given us all these reasons why. I want to talk about vouchers because we've heard Elon Musk kind of weighing in on it in Texas in
Yes.
particular. We have a question from Joseph Lockett. I want to make sure we answer that. And it talks about you get to use, it sounds like, ranked choice voting to go ahead for committee assignments. Any reason why that shouldn't happen for voters for the legislatures? And I think I already know the answer, but you tell me why.
Well, I mean, I just in my opinion, I mean, whoever, I guess if I need to clarify in what type of in all elections, as far as ranked choice at the federal level or at the state level, or it just would depend. I
Well,
just
it's
would like to get it
interesting.
more.
We had a forum we hosted for the Texas Democratic Party chair, and that's how the voters on the SDC, the 120 or so voters, are actually using ranked choice voting for our chair. So it's going to be one of the first times I'm aware of in Texas. We're going to see how it works. So kind of a good test case the Democratic Party is going to use on that. Have you, one of the things that obviously is a big deal is vouchers. It sounds like it's the most important
Yes.
in the world that we basically give a I've heard of it as a bailout to rich people because $10,000 is not going to get you into most public school or private schools, but if you're already paying and you're wealthy, you like $10,000 to go in your pocket from the rest of us. But in terms of practicality, how big a deal is it that Elon Musk is now saying Texas needs vouchers?
Well, I mean, look, you have an enormous amount of influence now at the federal level. We've nationalized, Austin was sometimes it was immune a little to some of the national politics, but here the last 10 years we've nationalized elections to an extreme level that anything right now that the president says and wants to influence down in Texas, they bow down, right? Elon Musk obviously is part of that regime, and unfortunately, and he's become a Texan. He has a lot of influence in Texas. Look, Elon Musk was coming to Texas to get when I first encountered him, he was obviously the owner of Tesla, owner of SpaceX. He was trying to get a foothold in Texas on SpaceX. Look, those are
well, he got
frankly,
a lot
those
of
are
taxpayer money for both of those, by the way. It's not like he came here
got a lot of taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Was able to get some licensing to operate SpaceX down in South Texas in Boca Chica, but he also wanted to change the law in Texas to allow Teslas to be sold directly. And our friends in the automotive industry, our auto dealers, went berserk. And he was trying to sell, cut out the middleman, cut out the auto dealers, and wanted to sell Teslas directly. So I think there's a big conflict of interest when it comes to what he's doing.
Conflict of interest he doesn't like yet.
Yeah, so there's just a huge influence on what the president said. I mean, look, they both tweeted about passing vouchers. Vouchers would decimate our public schools, right? And so you have over 5 million children that attend a public high school or public school or an ISD, right? And so throughout the state of Texas, this has not been a partisan issue, right? Rural Republicans and certain some suburban Republicans teamed up with Democrats to oppose vouchers. Why? Because we both know that it would be the slow bleeding out of our public school system, and it's something that we have to constantly fight back because our teachers and our schools need all the help that they can get.
Well, one of the things that we've been approached by the Texas Democratic Party Rural Caucus, and they've asked us, and just for those of y'all that are watching this on a download or watching this live, we're organizing some phone banks to reach out to Democrats in rural counties, basically Republican reps, so they in turn to basically encourage them and give them the means to talk to their legislature and say, hey, look, I'm out here in Silsbee. I do not want my taxpayer money hurting my school out there. How effective is something like that when they get a call from their constituent, even somebody who might be as Tea Party-ish as Tea Party-ish, if they get a call from somewhere in their district saying, do not do that?
Look, I mean, we're always, at least for me, whenever somebody comes to the office or calls the office or emails the office and they're from my district, I'm going to listen to them, right? I have to pay attention. You have to be you have to be very cognizant of your community. So if I'm a rural, well, I mean, yeah, let's just be honest about that, right? If you don't have your ear to the ground and what you're listening to, then I think that you probably have a good chance of not getting reelected, right? So these communities, these rural communities, a lot of these members, yeah, it would be helpful to hear from their constituent, whether they're Democrat, Independent, or Republican, because this has not been a partisan issue. This has been most Texans in our communities oppose vouchers because they do precisely what they are intended to do, and that is to slowly bleed out our public school system. That is a fact. And now you have the Governor Abbott's.
Say one thing. I mean, a lot of these counties or ISDs, rather, like Cold Spring, that's the biggest employer is the school district, among other things. And so, if you're basically defunding the schools, which is exactly what you pointed out, all of a sudden it matters if you're out in Cold Spring or Silsbee or Longview, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, let alone the only employer, they're the only educator, let alone the employment side. Let's just take that off the table. They're the only educator in these communities, right? There's no straight Jesuit. There's no Duchesne Academy. There's no St. John's in East and West Texas, right? So even if you did, okay, let's just say, for instance, even if you had some private parochial system in these rural communities, the $10,000 is not going to cover the tuition, right? The full tuition of going to a private parochial school. Again, that's a fact. And then the threshold that's in the bill that says that that indicates that you have I think 400 or 500% of the poverty level for a family of four. That's about close to a $200,000 salary. When you look at when you extrapolate the numbers, that's probably a two income family earning income family. Sorry, you're not rich. You're not, you're moderate income. You try to work hard to send your kids to a parochial school, but on the backs of low income taxpayers, right? Because
it's got to come from somewhere, doesn't it?
So I sit on the budget committee. The driving force for our budget, our state sales tax. 60% of our budget comes from state sales tax. Okay, and so obviously, your local ISDs there's a combination of state and local dollars that goes into the pot of your ISDs. But at the end of the day, your local property taxes are going through the roof as well. So we need property tax reform. We need to ease the burden on local homeowners and renters. Renters pay a tax, even though they don't pay it directly. It's an indirect pass on through whoever owns the property. So public education is a big deal. We can go into a lot of
Well, I got one
topics,
thing
but
actually I want
public
to ask you about that
education.
we were asking about before. You know, the big thing now, or not the big thing, we keep seeing Elon Musk, who's you know, walking in with his 4-year-old in a suit. And you were sharing with me about how you can't even get your 11 and 14-year-old to wear a suit to come to the floor. So how does that work?
Well, every session, the my kids, it's a special moment for my family and I, and my wife and my two boys. They're 14 and 11. My mother comes, my nieces and nephews, and so like the day before, it's really hard. I mean, the weeks before, we're trying to buy my boys a suit and tie, and it's just they're like, Dad, this tie is too tight, or this jacket is too tight, and I feel like I'm choking. So, but it's mandatory for the kids to wear a coat and tie when they reach a certain age. And my boys, I've been in office 16, or this is my ninth term. So I've been in office a complete 16 years, or 18, going on 18 years now. And it's just been, um, it's been a good, uh, how do I say this? Experience for my children to be able to be in the state capitol, because that's all they know, right? And they see Dad, have to leave every odd number year for 140 days. You miss some baseball games because they're hyper involved in sports. You miss some, piano recitals, but it's all in the service of our community. So we love it. But my kids, they're like, Dad, the
They're
suit's
not
too
going to be
tight.
following you around like Elon Musk. At least they're not cute little 4-year-olds. Not
No,
going
my
to you.
my kids do not want to do that, even though I drag them to events on the weekends too, though.
Well, they'll get it. So one of the questions we got is about the voucher, and I think we kind of touched on that. You know, at this point, the plan is $10,000 for a voucher, and yet at the same
Correct.
time, there's only roughly $6,000 going per student from the state. One of the things, you may or may not know, and I think we talked about this. HCDP has 4 priorities. One of them is minimum wage bill, which I know you always file one,
I
and
filed.
that's incredibly important. We got to hear from Representative Morales about that. But the other is Representative Rosenthal is going to be carrying a bill at our request to basically address the fact that we've cut since 2014 dramatically the state money. So it's not just a matter of sucking it out for voucher. The Republicans have been defunding our schools for the last 10 years. Any hope of that passing?
Um, it, Frankly, it doesn't seem like it would, but I would continue to file these bills. We have to send a message that Democrats care about working people. We have to continue. I always file a minimum wage bill for workers. Look, my mom worked at Church's Chicken on Airline in Tidwell when I was in high school. She made $4.35 an hour at the time, in the early mid 90s. And so I come from a working blue collar household. My mama was single. So this is very personal to me. So any of these bills that lift people up, right? That the minimum wage bill would be something that'd be very, very helpful. Any kind of property tax relief for folk would be very helpful. Anything that helps lift up communities, that would be great.
Well, and actually, Meg put one out there as, on a legislative reproductive rights. I will say this, one of our priorities, and Senator Alvarado is co-sponsoring that in the Senate, has to do with basically putting a definition to protect women who are in miscarriages from dying, which is a big
That's
problem
correct.
in the bill. There's some hope on that one because, boy, who really is in favor of women dying, other than, I guess, Republicans that are happy with that because of
So
the case.
So look, I've been a champion of women's health since my time in the legislature. So uh, I passed in the House in 2013 the bill that established the maternal mortality morbidity task force in the state of Texas back, now 10 years ago. Those subsequent reports that have come out from those case studies of reviewing death certificates from the hospitals, to find out, one, why a pregnant mother after giving birth, why does she die? We had some policy recommendations, and the number one recommendation out of each of those reports is access to care, right? And so what we did here recently is, prior to this 12-month extension of Medicaid, women who were on Medicaid and given birth to children while they were on Medicaid, sorry, they were kicked off of Medicaid after 60 days, right? So the healthcare needs to continue for that mother. And for that baby, obviously. And so what we did in the legislature is we actually took us a few times to try to pass this bill, to do it, pass a 12-month extension of 12-month coverage for Medicaid for mothers that were on Medicaid. And I thought that was a good thing. Now, we need to do better. Texas ranks in the bottom of access to care for everybody, but particularly for mothers. And so we need to care about mothers. And so, yes, I think there's going to be a bigger emphasis. I know I have some bills on doula services, on reimbursing doula services for Medicaid, for mothers that could use doula services that are on Medicaid. And so we need to pass. I think I'm going to do a 24-month extension for Medicaid coverage for pregnant moms. So
I don't know
reproductive rights is a big deal.
Yeah. But yeah. I'm going to interrupt because we actually hit our fourth legislative priority, and that is Medicaid for all. Because there shouldn't be people in this state who don't have health insurance. And I think we heard this on one of the earlier ones. At this point, Harris Health, which is funded by the taxpayers in Harris County,
that's great,
paying for, and there's a cost if we don't have Medicare for all, which is free federal money. It's coming back to us as taxpayers in Harris County. So thank you for hitting on all our legislative priorities in one call for that. We have a question about something I think that also matters to really everybody, especially now with the year end or whether a cycle, home insurance costs, which are going through the roof. What's the plan? What's the hope? What would you recommend that we pay attention to, or maybe get engaged when we're talking about insurance costs, which are crazy out of control at this point?
No, look, I feel it personally in my premium that went up for my bundle, and I'm not going to name the name of the carrier because they're just going through the roof.
Yeah.
I'm just like a lot of homeowners, and State Farm has just been, their premiums going through the roof, and
well,
I don't have a big house.
Yeah.
I live in the community that I represent. I've been out here my whole life, and I don't have a huge house. It's a 1,200 square foot little bitty home, a 3-bedroom home here, and but it's our home. But I feel it personally, so I know obviously my constituents feel it, and many Texans feel it. So it's gotten a lot of coverage here recently. I think you're going to see maybe some movement to try to reform that. But look, the carriers are a very powerful interest group in the state of Texas. So
that's why we got
but the consumer needs a better deal, honestly. And I've heard from some of our members on both sides of the aisle that are complaining about their premiums, and they're going through the roof. So my hope is that we get some kind of reform.
Well, I think we've answered for the most part questions. One of the folks was asking, why does it matter between, this is back to the ranked voting. Why does it matter, federal, state, whatever? Does it matter whether, we'll see how it works with our TPP chair, but what are you thinking?
So I guess just to clarify on the question on ranked voting, it was in reference to our committee assignments. I think that's what it is.
But y'all get to do
question
it.
Was.
How about we try it for voting for general? If it works so well in the legislature, why don't we use it generally?
I have no opinion on that right now. So
that's fair. That's fair. So yeah. I want to wrap with two questions that we try and get most folks to answer. And one of them is, what's the weirdest thing you've seen so far this session, and what are you most optimistic about? And you can pick what order. You can pick a weird thing. You can end with the most optimistic thing.
I wouldn't call it weird. It's just some of the new members that have come in that are going to the back mic, that are screaming bloody murder about us not getting to work. It's not so much a weird thing. It's just odd that these folks would go to the back mic to complain to the speaker about not getting to work. Well, if they read the Constitution, we don't hear bills until after the 60th day. So when you see conservatives talk about how they're strict constructions of the Constitution, well, some of these guys haven't read the Constitution. But one of the things I am optimistic is on infrastructure, on water. Those of us that live in Houston, we have leaky pipes, we have flood control issues, we have transportation issues. There's going to be a big push to do some infrastructure, put some dollars into infrastructure on the water side. I think that is a positive. I think it's something that those of us in the Gulf Coast feel very passionate about. I sit on the appropriations committee. I've sat on the conference committee to the budget. I'm one of only 2 Democrats that has gotten to serve the last 3 sessions, sorry, on the conference committee from both chambers. And so we've been able to steer a lot of flood infrastructure dollars to Harris County, to the Harris County Flood Control District, well north of $100 million. I think that without me being in the room to help steer those dollars, that would not have happened. So I'm proud of that work. We've gotten dollars. I'm optimistic about places like the University of Houston
All right.
that over the years have passed a Texas University Fund. We've put $4 billion into that fund to help schools like U of H and Tech, North Texas, the Texas state system, because you only have two institutions that are able to benefit from what we call the Permanent University Fund. And the short is, it's a huge amount. It was created probably over 100 years ago, and only 2 institutions. And it's a tax on oil and gas severance taxes that allows on leases that helps fund the Permanent University Fund. And only 2 institutions get the benefit: UT and A&M. Yep. And so those 2 forces have not allowed institutions like U of H and Tech to participate in the PUF. And there's a reason why the UT and A&M have one of the largest endowments in the nation, is because they have access to these dollars. And so the last couple sessions, those of us from the alumni of Tech and U of H have teamed up together and asked the legislature for more dollars. And that's what we've done. And that's what I will continue to do, is to help our institutions of higher education get the resources they need, because they educate. Those are the schools that have given opportunities to kids like me in Houston, Texas, that grew up poor. They didn't have a lot of resources, but they gave us a chance to go to school and get a good education here locally. So that's something that's important to me, and I'm optimistic about.
Well, it's great to hear that you're on top of the things that matter so much right here. And I will share with you one of the things that our deep canvassing, where we spent a good chunk of money, it was with canvassing starting last year in January. And in the top 5 issues for our voters, flood resiliency. People care about that in Harris County a lot, having gone through. They do. And knowing we're going to go through it. So thank you for that. I got one of the questions actually said, whatever you do, don't let the governor steal Houston's water, which it sounds like they're trying to do, but we'll see. But thank you for doing this. As we go forward, if you've got something, I mean, this is every Saturday. We get a lot of folks downloading this. So if you got things that you really like to share, schedule a time and we'll have you back on here. And we hope to have you at our open house and see you in Harris County plenty of times as you do your hard work. Thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you, Mike. And thanks to the Harris County Democratic Party. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you. Thank you, Carisha. We'll see you all next week. Thank you.